What if I told you that there was one practice that, when done completely, would make you unstoppable? You could easily achieve anything you want in life without limit. Sort of like in the movie Limitless, but only better than Eddie Mora and with no need for drugs whatsoever. All you need is yourself and a strong sense of self-control. This practice is called Akhanda Brahmacharya. I will also call this God mode interchangeably. Akhanda Brahmacharya is the sublimation of all your sexual impulses. You must practice this in word, thought, and deed. Also, there is celibacy and Nofap, but in practice these are different from God mode for reasons which I will get into later. Your whole life, you've been essentially programmed out of identification with what or who you are, and you've been trained to identify with a completely empty and false sense of self. You think you are the body that is limited and will certainly end in death. The point of your human existence is to break free from this pattern and to realize your deathless, immortal true self. But it is also the most difficult task to work towards, especially given how things work in the modern age. Because of the term semen retention, these practices are often attributed to just men. But women also stand to benefit greatly from these practices and have the same potential to spark the divinity within themselves. This dream we call life has been a roller coaster for me. I've had to pick myself up so many times, but every time you pick yourself up, things get better. Every time things are bad, they can only get better. You're completely free and completely perfect and able to do anything you want. The only thing that can stop you is you. Some people have done well in life without being on retention, but those people who control these urges perform infinitely better. And on the other end of the spectrum are those people who are battered by porn addiction, or any addiction for that matter. Those people stand no chance at even performing in an average manner. You have only a limited amount of energy, and if you dissipate it all on nonsense, you will have wasted your human existence. But taking semen retention to the extreme in God mode literally changes who you are. It also makes your ability to continue retaining more likely, as you are not thinking about the addiction constantly. God will literally step into your being and change the nature of your experience. I know you're thinking, great, but how do I do this? I'll do my best to explain how it happens, and the why of all this. And if you stick around to the end, I will give 2 tips on how to transmute after delving into the topics of how and why. Swami Shivananda is the leading spiritual guru on this topic. He said in his book Practice of Brahmacharya, "It is easy to get university qualifications. It demands a little money, memory, intelligence, and a little strain. But it is an uphill climb to obliterate the sexual impulse. He who has completely eradicated lust and is established in mental brahmacharya is Brahman, or God himself." A few years into my Nofap journey, and having broken the porn addiction, I accidentally moved into the spiritual side of this practice after coming across the Swamiji's book and implementing everything he said. At the time, I just wanted to expand my longest streak and avoid having wet dreams, as I was seeing benefits and I was scared to lose them. But in doing this, I experienced a bliss that once experienced, I could never go back. Before spiritualization, I was doing this for worldly reasons. Usually people get into Nofap because they want to make more money, or get girls, or go out of the house, and so on. But after practicing what I learned from the Swamiji's teachings, my world was turned upside down. This is not to say that the benefits of just Nofap or regular retention are not well worth it. I will delve deep into that in another video, but the results on God mode have been divine. But God mode is a mountain to climb. Don't think it's going to be easy. On God mode, I wake up at 3 to 4 a.m., meditate, and do yogic headstands as wet dreams happen in the 4th quadrant of sleep. Waking up super early rids the need to deal with urges that come from the thoughts that are pushed out of your subconscious mind in your dreams. Anyone who has done retention or Nofap knows that dreams can wreak havoc and cause urges that make your life difficult. Every time I would have a sexual thought, I would close my eyes and chant, "God, please give me your grace. God, please shine your grace on me," over and over until my mind would become focused and one-pointed. It is only through God's grace that one can do this practice. It's indeed an uphill battle, as every slip begins with just a thought, and sometimes the thoughts just come without warning. Eventually, I got to the point where I would sense the bubble root of the thought forming in my consciousness, and I would just say, "I'm not going to go there," and my mind would immediately go to one-pointedness directly. First, you control your urges, and then you will be able to slowly and more progressively control your mind. Eventually, you will control your body, your prana or spiritual energies, and completely control your mind. You will experience unexplainable bliss and immense improvements in intellect and an almost superhuman ability to control your mind. For those who love this world and its temporary pleasures, I'll say this. If you can concentrate and control your mind, you can obtain anything, and none of your competitors on this plane will stand a chance. As Swami Vivekananda said, when you renounce nature, you find that she takes an interest in you. When you renounce her a little more, she begins to chase you. And when you finally don't care for her at all, she becomes your slave. If you can concentrate and control your mind, then nothing on the material plane is out of reach. For example, a few years ago, I was finishing Learn to Code at a boot camp, and I was like, I'm going to build an app like Uber as a business idea. I also ended up using that app in job interviews to show off my work, and eventually I had to stop using it because they didn't believe it was mine, and because basically my application was way better than what teams of developers were working on consistently. My intellect was very sharp and coming from somewhere else. It was the will of God for them not to hire me, and of course eventually I got a higher paying job and laughed at the situation. And then on the job, I was so sharp that I was able to do the work they gave me for 2 weeks in 1 day or so, and then move on to work on my own startup. If you are in God mode, there is no competition. You actually stop caring about this world, yet at the same time love everyone and everything with every cent of your being. You will not care about the vain things that used to drive you. God is slowly taking up the driver's seat, and you experience it directly. We have an incredible amount of energy, especially between the ages of 25 to 45, that can wreak havoc on our minds. But, if controlled and channeled to the right pathways, this energy is the very source of divinity. It is stored as what is called ojas, or spiritual energy in the brain. Ojas is formed from the nerve currents of the body, and is easily formed when one is on God mode. The energy is still there after 45, but it slowly dissipates as we approach old age. It may seem as though the cards are stacked against you in life, but if you can control yourself, there's nothing out of your reach. The more you practice God mode, the more you will sublimate the sexual energy and the more you will benefit. In 6 months of time, you will feel like a completely different person. Your intellect will be sharper, your ability to concentrate will be building, you will not be having sexual thoughts compulsively anymore. Depression and anxiety, those will just be bad memories. You will command the attention of everyone who gets into your periphery with authority, and you will make a strong impression on everyone. And as you slowly merge into infinity, which is your true self, time will seem to fly by and somehow lose its meaning. With this practice, there is nothing you cannot attain in the material realm or the spiritual realm. Like everything else, you must just be persistent. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa stated, "A man controlling the seminal fluid for 12 years develops a special power. He grows an inner nerve called the nerve of memory. Through that nerve, he remembers all. He understands all." In this, he is referring to the Medha Nadi, a spiritual channel of energy currents that allows the aspirant to understand even the subtlest of things. If we can last that long on God mode, another interesting thing will happen, according to Swami Shivananda. To explain what he said in a way everyone can understand it, I'll break it down for you like this. You know that guy Jesus? You want to be like him? Then do God mode for 12 years. Your destiny may not be to have the exact same powers as him, but you will be godlike. In fact, spiritually speaking, you are God. You just don't see it. You will rip the veil of illusion that separates you from your innermost self. What's that? Blasphemy, you say? Not to offend anyone's beliefs, but belief is just accepting something on the level of mind to tame your ego. If you're a Muslim, well, the Prophet Muhammad said, "He who knows himself knows Allah." What was that self he spoke of? The Sufis understood it loud and clear. You're a Christian, you say? Go read the Gospel of Thomas, the only words of the living Jesus, which were all mystical teachings and deemed blasphemy by the church. In the King James Version of the Bible, Jesus in John 10:36 says, "I am the Son of God." But if you dig, you will find that the word "the" is italicized, which deceptively makes it look like it is being emphasized. However, italicizations were words that were interpolated in the Bible by the translators. Jesus was an enlightened yogi stating that he is a son of God and showing the path for you to realize the same thing about yourself. It didn't ever benefit the church's financial goals to tell you this or any of his other beautiful mystical teachings. Eastern religions have no problem accepting this, as Buddhism is a systematic teaching to annihilate the ego. In Hinduism, Atman is the self or supreme being, and yoga is a scientific practice whose goal is the realization of that supreme being as one's consciousness. I can't think of one religion whose uppermost esoteric teachings don't point to the divine self. I don't wish to convince you, as that will only push beliefs. Just try yoga as Jesus did and see for yourself. I chose to separate God mode from celibacy, semen retention, and Nofap here because celibacy does not include the sublimation of the urges that occur. In celibacy, for what it stands for, the spiritual side of this can be non-existent, and if so, practitioners are just restraining themselves. If you do this, you will not get any benefits. In fact, you may be hurting yourself and better off just not doing any of this than doing just celibacy without the spiritual sublimation of the energy. Not to say that all people on celibacy are not spiritual. I'm just noting that the word celibacy itself is not what I'm referring to. And on regular Nofap, well, Nofap is great and was my starting ground. Nofap will break the addiction and move you towards having normal relations as opposed to PMOing, but the goals are just slightly different. Still, just doing Nofap, you will be light years ahead of everyone else. And on Nofap, unlike plain celibacy with no sublimation included, you will be having relations, so you will not be restrained. You will take charge and experience more of what this world has to offer, empty as you may find it if you are lucky enough to progress onto God mode. And on monk mode or semen retention, you will gain immense benefits, but in God mode and extending this practice to word, thought, as well as deed, no other path compares. I will try to do another video on the benefits of these other paths as they are all interrelated, but again, maximum benefits come with God mode and Akhanda Brahmacharya in word, thought, and deed. It is difficult though, I won't lie, but it is also the most rewarding discipline on this planet. If you can sacrifice this tickling of your nerves, which is what the scent pleasures boil down to, you will have boundless treasures that await. If you feel weak, just do 1 month and see where it goes. You can always extend it later. Even just striving to kill the thoughts will make you grow and evolve exponentially in the spiritual plane. As for my tips that I promised earlier in the video on how to do this practice, The first is for those who are not ready for direct spiritual practice. Those not ready for spiritual asanas can use your work, which actually is spiritual, whether that is your intention or not. Do whatever work you do while retaining, and your energies will be transmuted into your work. The longer you retain while doing this, the more infrequent the urges and thoughts will become. This is known as karma yoga. To do karma yoga, you do whatever work it is you have with love for the universe and everyone, and with the intention of bettering humanity. If you do this while retaining, you will transmute the energy into your work, and you will have less thoughts because you will be utilizing the energy and guiding it to your upper chakras instead of letting it bottle up in your lower Muladhara chakra, which is where your energies stagnate if you are constantly expelling your urges. The second part of this is called spiritual sadhana, or spiritual practice. Everyone who does God mode, ready or not, will likely eventually find themselves in this arena just by the very nature of what Akhanda Brahmacharya does to your being. Spiritual practice makes the process easier and directly deals with the thoughts that, when unchecked, lead to action and or speech in the lower plane. Every time you sense a bad thought forming, you should just think, I'm not going to go there, and then move on to either meditate or proceed working with the intention of love for all beings. And if the thought has already arisen and has taken its grip over you, chant a mantra. Use the name of the Lord, whatever the Lord is to you. The name of the Lord is your best friend here. The easiest mantra is to just pray and ask your higher power over and over to free you from the thoughts. You can look up and experiment with different mantras from there, but just build the habit of the practice to sublimate the energies. Chant with all your heart, visioning the Lord concentrated with your eyes closed. You don't know what to envision? Then just picture Jesus or a Hindu god statue or anything. Really, what you envision is arbitrary. It is just an aid to allow you to concentrate and more easily attain one-pointedness of mind. Again, the name of the Lord is your friend here, so use it generously on this path. In doing this, you are channeling the desire you previously would put towards the lower plane, towards attaining freedom from that very lower plane. Continue the chanting until one of the following. A. Chant until you feel the energy going upwards from your lower energy centers to your upper chakra centers, or B. Chant until the urges completely subside. With time, you will sense the energy going upwards, but if this doesn't happen at first, just move on when the fire subsides. When you move on, return to your karma yoga, and your good deeds will further transmute the energy. When on God mode, you will find yourself having tremendous energy, working non-stop and not burning out. It is like you are on cocaine 24/7, but way sharper and more intelligent than everyone else around you. This doesn't happen overnight, but consistent practice, and a few months later you will find yourself experiencing what I've mentioned. You will come to a point where you can no longer just sit and idly waste time doing frivolous things. Doing your spiritual practice and your work will push you into the realm of divinity, and you will be in ecstasy the entire time you are doing it. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe and hit the like and bell icons if you like the content. Also, be sure to leave comments for any ideas for future videos on this topic you may like to see. Cheers!